And you'll see it. Great. And I'm going to ask you, just for the record, make it easy in trying to find everything, just to state your name and what you do and who you are.
My name is Valerie Sessa. I am a professor at Montclair State University in industrial and organizational psychology. I'm also a Hoboken resident, a wife, a mother of two girls, teenage girls. Mm, I could go on and on about who I am. Is that enough?
Oh, for now, because we're going to talk more about everything. So I'm curious, when was the first time you started to hear about what was going on and how your reactions changed as more news came forward?
Actually, we started looking into this a lot sooner, probably than most people. We went to Vietnam in February. So we literally were discussing at that before we went to Vietnam whether we should go or not. So we were fully aware of what was going on in China. Uh, so we were watching Vietnam. We flew through Taiwan. Taiwan airport at one point was closed because it was considered part of China, but then it was later opened. So day to day, we were watching um, before we left for Vietnam whether we should go or not. We were analyzing how many cases were in Vietnam, what was going on in Taiwan, that sort of thing. We got over to Vietnam, and Vietnam was taking it very seriously. They'd already closed the schools, masks, very careful with the tourists, fewer tourists in general. So people were already starting to cancel their trips to Asia. So when we got back, we were supposed to go to Japan in April. So we got back and we were looking and looking, and we almost pretty quickly, so this is still in February, canceled our trip to Japan. We saw the writing on the wall. My daughter, one of my daughters, was ill with a sore throat, and so I'm like looking up corona and symptoms, and I called her doctor and I said, got a full disclosure. We've been traveling to Asia. Can I bring her in? Do you want her virus tested? They had me call at the time. I don't remember what the number was, but there was a number in Jersey City that was the New Jersey Department of Health number. So I called them before I could even take her into the doctor. This was all in probably early March, or before anything hit here in the US. Um, and so we were already, we knew it was coming. We didn't know this was coming, but we knew this was coming in some form back then. Did that answer
And
your question?
oh, totally. And then, well, what was the result of your daughter that had the
She had
sore
a
throat?
strep throat. I knew it was strep throat, but see, even back then, I was looking up the symptoms. And I knew back then, it's just now starting to come out that it has digestive issues. And I'm like, how come they're not? It had digestive issues back then. It just wasn't really published.
Hmm.
And corona viri, is that the viruses, tend to have digestive issues. So if you just, I knew she had strep, but I just needed to let them know we'd been traveling because God forbid I shut down the entire pediatrician's office and bring corona to Hoboken inadvertently. That was not what I wanted to do. And my daughter's like, "Oh my God, I've been going to school. Why did I just shut down the state of New Jersey?" I suspected, 99% sure it was strep, which it was.
Great.
So,
Um, so that's nice. That was a big relief, obviously, on
yes,
all
but
kinds
we
of
were
fronts.
on the phone. We're in the car. I picked her up from school. We're in the car. The pediatrician's office is telling us to, I'm saying, I can't just bring her in. Um, so I've got the phone on speakerphone. My daughter's listening to me talk to the Department of Health, and she's like going, "Oh my God." I think that's when we kind of like realized
How do
it just inadvertently, what a big issue that would have been.
right. How do you think that the city's been handling the virus here in Hoboken as far as communicating and all the different efforts that they've been making? What is your feeling about that?
I think they're doing a really good job. I love getting the email. I get the Nixle via text and email from the mayor. And if I don't get it that night, I mean, I'm almost like watching for it. I'm like, why isn't he? So I love getting it. I find it really helpful. I find his messaging to be nice, to be understanding. Um, the hotline, the CERT hotline, is nice. The food drives. It's all about food. It's something maybe we can discuss at some point in time, but I think that's nice. One thing I like about Hoboken is people volunteer, right? They love to do. They want to help, and so it seems like the city, there are people I'm seeing and hearing and watching that aren't on board, but it seems like Hoboken has, and the residents of Hoboken, the Hoboken community is really pulled together. But I've seen that it seems to pull together fairly easily under circumstances.
How have you seen the volunteers come together? Have you been involved in any volunteer activities yourself?
Yes, yes. So I was right after, just to give you the full story. Do you want the full story? I don't know how much time we have. Okay, the full story. During Hurricane Sandy, um, couple of days in the cold and dark, and I headed down to City Hall to help volunteer. And the Stevens students were running the volunteer resource center down there, and I knew one of them, and I told them. So I ended up helping them run the volunteer resource center during Hurricane Sandy. And I remember I'm like standing there with my hands up, and yeah, like corralling in the volunteers, and I'm like, and somebody comes as my arms are outspread and puts the CERT vest on me, puts a hat on me, and whispers in my ear, "Get trained." So the next CERT training program that came around, my husband and I both attended the CERT training, and I've been active in CERT ever since. In addition, because I helped run the volunteer resource center, I'm the head of the volunteer resource center this time around as well. So when the hotlines opened, I immediately started to volunteer with the hotlines. Um, and then they opened the first.
You the we were frozen for a second, and the last thing you said was we opened the first. Can you repeat
uh,
that?
Point of distribution, which is at the food pantry. And we started delivering food to the elderly and others that were trying to social distance, that didn't want to go to the grocery stores around town. Um, at that point, I stopped working at the call center, and the food pantry, we started using outside volunteers, non-CERT volunteers. So I cranked up the volunteer resource center, but it's virtual this time. So I do it all online. I do most of that. I do all of that from the home. It's very small compared to Hurricane Sandy, where we had hundreds of volunteers. Here, we only use a very few during the week because we need to keep it safe and healthy and social distancing and that sort of stuff. So I do that from home, and I also have continued to help with the food pantry when they need it. I kind of like on call, for example, to They do deliveries on Tuesdays and Fridays. So there's some walking deliveries that are just a block or so away. I'll usually walk those deliveries. If they're short on volunteers to make the deliveries, I'll help with that. Um, if there's when I bring in non-cert volunteers, if there's no other cert person present, I I need them to go to that. So there's been a couple of uh, food packing opportunities around town where they asked me to bring volunteers. So I also went to those as well. So it varies, but it's couple. It's not that many hours a week, and it varies.
Any particular memorable moment in that process of delivering the food to some of the seniors that are sheltering in place, for example? Any responses from them that kind of stand out in your mind?
Yes, there's you see two sorts. One is, I mean, people are just like they're living by themselves, and they come to the door and they're so grateful to get food, to have a 30-second window to say hello. I mean, you can't really do much, and they're so grateful. And then there was one, this is one in particular of the other, well, I'll give you two in particular of the other sort, which one I didn't know there was an elevator. So I had two big bags of food and I walked up 4 floors. I was ready. I mean, good. I need to work out. It was my workout for the day. I was out of breath by the time I got up there. And the person answering the door is like, "Well, why didn't you use the elevator?" And I'm like, "I didn't. Where's the elevator?" And she's like, "Down there." And then she shuts the door. I'm like, "You're welcome." No, she said, "Next time use the elevator." Shuts the door, and I'm like, "Okay." And then there was another one that was interesting. So we're delivering food to people who are social distancing and trying to be careful and that sort of thing. Ring the doorbell, nobody answers. I don't usually do this. I try not to do this, but I will occasionally call using my phone, which is a big problem. Are you frozen, by the way? No. Okay.
No, I'm not.
You were frozen on
No.
your end. So,
Oh, okay.
um, so I called because I was like, what's going, they're not here again, lots of groceries, and nobody answers. So I get ready to leave and I get the call back, right? And they said, "Who are you? What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'm here with your groceries." They're like, "Well, we're not in. Let me call my neighbor and see if she can get it. I'll be right back." So I'm standing there waiting for her to call her neighbor to come get her food. No neighbor. She calls back and she said, "Well, you know what? I'm actually down near City Hall. Can you bring it down there?" And I'm like, "No, no, we're delivering food to you because you can't leave." So, but we deliver food to, all you need to do is you call the hotline and say that you need the food, no questions asked. We will deliver food to you.
Wow, that's really great. So speaking of food, has your life changed in terms of food for you and your family and dinner time and such at home? Have things changed at home for you guys?
Yes, to the better, I think. Um, I have been cooking. My husband and I cook dinner. We hand that off. My daughter, my 13-year-old, has gotten started cooking dinner. So one of the three of us, we don't eat out anywhere near. Well, we don't eat out. We don't order out either anywhere near as much. We're doing a lot of eating at home. Um, I like that a lot better because you can control what you eat and stuff like that. But we've always had family dinners, so we've continued to have family dinners. Um, but it's nice to see my daughter, cranking up her food making. So that's been fun.
How have you guys been walking around Hoboken together or separately? And if you have, are you noticing anything different in Hoboken? Does it feel or look or seem different to you now with everything that's going on?
We've continued to walk. I walk in the mornings a couple of days a week for fitness. So I try to get out there in the morning, and I'll walk with one daughter or the other, just to get them aired out, get the cobwebs shaken out. And um, well, yeah, Washington Street is much, things are closed, everything's closed. I'm starting to see things starting to open back up, but it's of course not opened. It's for takeout and they have like the plastic down. Either it's rolls of plastic, or they seem to have bought the plexiglass. Um, they've really come around in that regard. Sometimes walking on the waterfront, you'd never know that we're supposed to be social distancing. There's a um, more people out than you'd expect, but I'm out. I mean, how can I say you shouldn't be out because I'm out? Um, so yeah, that's about all I can say about that.
Has work changed for you? How do you, how is that, how is this, what's going on affected your work life?
This is really interesting. I am on sabbatical this semester, so I'm not teaching. I The only thing different in terms of work for me is I was going into the office to meet with my students once a week, maybe. I've all done on Zoom, but all the scrambling that professors and teachers had to get everything turned into online on a dime. I haven't had to do that. I've been writing, so my work has been almost exactly the same. But that'll be that's going to be over this semester, though.
Um, do you have a sense of how Hoboken might change after all this? Or do you feel that we'll eventually just go back to where we were? Do you have any, what is your vision or feeling of how things are going to be in Hoboken? Do you have any sense of that?
I don't yet have a sense of that.
Yeah.
I um Until we know a little bit more what's going on with the virus and what how we need to whether and how we need to adapt. Is it something that we can that there'll be a cure for? Probably not. A vaccine for? That's going to be a long time forward. Maybe no vaccine. Maybe it'll turn into like something like the flu, like the Spanish flu, which I believe turned into a strain of the flu that you now get a vaccine for yearly. I So when you say um, what do you expect? Whatever it's going to be, it's going to unfold over time, and it's going to change. I hope. Um, so it's not going to be. I'm not going to see a switch like on June 5th. I don't think we're going to go from uh, current to pre. There'll be things that go into place that we don't even know about. I'm just think about 9/11. And they started to put in like all kinds of security issues to go into concerts and stuff like that. And they've never gone away, right? And they're now just commonplace. We don't even notice them. You go through security lines to get into any sort of public gathering of any size. They now put, like the big traffic stopping equipment up. Nobody even, it's like we don't notice it. So I suspect that sort of thing it'll be weird to begin with, like I don't know, I'm just going to speculate that restaurants will have some sort of heat sensor. I don't know.
Right.
And at first you'll be like, oh my gosh. And then after a while, it'll be like, it is what it is.
Do
But
you have any
I don't know what that might look like.
Do you have any social organizations that you belong to, book clubs, religious or affiliations, or any social groups that you used to get together in a certain way, and that now you're perhaps getting together in a different way? I'm just curious how this has affected those organizations.
I have professional organizations and I have just friends organizations. I don't really have any social, like book clubs or anything like that. Um, so social, and they're okay. I'm not thrilled with them. Zooming, with your little glass of wine and catching up, and I don't know. Sometimes I join them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel like I should join it, so go ahead and join it. Um, the professional ones, that is still unfolding. So I, Joe and I were, my husband and I were supposed to go to South by Southwest in March. We held on to that until the bitter end, when it was canceled. But I mean, we figured it would probably be canceled, but we're like, we're gonna watch. We're gonna watch. It was down in Austin. Good thing they canceled, because shortly after that, Austin had a official outbreak. South by Southwest had come in. Texas would have been underwater. I had a conference that was still on in April. I had two conference papers. I think, yeah, two conference papers to present. But I had students that were going to present them, and I was getting online, and I'm like, you know what? I do not feel like going to this conference, so I didn't. I just told the students, listen, I'm not going. It was canceled. In the meantime, we had papers under review at other conferences, which have since been canceled. I think those conferences they're going to try to do online. I have no idea what that's going to look like. And I really am not feeling I should I will definitely have to get onto some of these, because my students are presenting and I need to be there to give them moral support, but I am not feeling it. I don't want to participate. I don't know why. It should be kind of like exciting. Let's see what this is like. Uh, that's not what I'm feeling.
How are your children coping with this, and I mean, they're almost adults in a sense, but because they're grown, but how are they dealing with it? And has that been difficult for them, or you seem very positive, so are they embracing that positive aspect that you have? How are they coping?
Two teenagers. I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. Thankfully, the 16-year-old's a junior, so we're not having to deal with lack of doing senior year sort of issues, and the 13-year-old is in 7th grade. So I'm hoping neither one of them are like missing out on their end of schooling, this round of schooling sort of issues, or getting ready to go to the next, like going to college or something like that. So there's that. Um, their schooling is all online. Um, they don't get to see their friends. They're both teenage girls, not seeing friends. Um, they're doing okay given the circumstances. If this wasn't going on, this wouldn't be considered, okay, but they're struggling. They should be struggling. They're anxious of what this means. This is fright. I mean, when you think about uh, when people talk about generation, like different generational periods, one of the things that they look for that defines a generation is these big events. And this is going to have an impact on them for the rest of their lives in ways that I can't even begin to understand, and won't unfold, um, you know, for many, many years. We'll be watching this unfolding, the impact that it had on them. That Allie, my older daughter, is also a CERT member. She's the only teenage CERT member in Hoboken presently. She's trying to bring in a teen CERT program, and she was supposed to start the training program right when this hit. So she has been, she's the only teenager that at this point in time that can volunteer with CERT. That's just changing right now. They just asked her to start up a teen volunteer group, and they are putting together shields, face shields for the frontline workers, including veterinarians and funeral workers, not funeral home workers. So she's been able to get out and help. So she's worked the hotlines when they first opened. She worked at the hotlines. She works at the food pantry. She's helped pack foods. She's helped deliver foods. And now she's running, she's managing bringing in the teens to put together the shields. So she does get out and help, which I think is really crucial to her kind of mental well-being, to be able to do something bigger than herself. We don't have those opportunities yet for Katie, the 13-year-old.
You were involved with the Girl Scouts, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still, how is that organization? Are you still a part of that at all?
I still am. And the Girl Scouts are working. Allie, her Teen CERT project, that is for her Gold Award, which is the highest award that a Girl Scout can earn. For people who are familiar with Boy Scouts, it would be similar to the Eagle Scout Award. So this is the big one. So I'm still involved in supporting her in doing that project. My younger daughter, Katie, is a cadet, and she is working on her Silver Award, which is the way the Girl Scouts set up the Boy Scouts. You just get your Eagle Award. There's no other awards. Girl Scouts, you can get your Bronze Award, your Silver Award, then your Gold Award, depending. So juniors get bronze, cadets can earn their silver. I don't remember. The senior Girl Scouts can get their Gold Award. So Katie's working on her Silver Award. That's slowed down quite a bit, just because trying to get together, and she's working with Hoboken Waterfront to work with the estuary and that sort of stuff, to get that information out. So Noelle Thurlow, she's working with Noelle Thurlow. I think that's her name. She and a small team of people, and it's hard because it's over the phones and stuff like that. Interestingly, I had another small team of Girl Scouts that had just started working with the city of Hoboken. They were going to launch a public relations media sort of campaign to address, help advertise and get out information of concerning what Hoboken was doing to support the homeless, and also how, like I said, people in Hoboken like to help, how the public could help support the Hoboken homeless initiatives. For example, the food pantry was just launched. You need to get information out about how to support the food pantry, that sort of stuff. That all has stopped once the coronavirus hit. We switched over, and they need more help and more support. They're trying to get masks for the Hoboken homeless, which is very homeless populations. It's a very vulnerable population. They're out. So when you say if you're out in public, you need to wear a mask, Well, homeless populations out in public all the time. They need masks. When it says you cannot enter this establishment without a mask, if you don't have a mask, you can't go buy yourself a cup of coffee or something like that. So it's a population that desperately needs masks. But right now, the um, the first line workers seem to be getting the attention as they should. I'm not saying that there's, but that is a population, and so they started a public relations, a PR campaign to try to get masks for the homeless. Um, it just ran into some snafus and issues, and I'm hoping to help them get that restarted. Also, they're 13-year-olds, so they tend, they're 13. One and done. I created a flyer. I'm done. PR, you keep at you. It's like a process. It's not, and they just don't know that yet. So, they need to learn what PR is, and they don't really have that support yet right now. They don't have somebody who's saying, this is what PR is. You got to keep going. They need that guidance. And also they're at home and it's all online anyway. So it's not so easy. So they're trying. But that's the kind of stuff that we're working on. The other thing, we had just finished selling cookies. We had just picked the cookies up. And my girls are a little bit older. So selling cookies door to door, they're not so cute. They're not, they're not the cute little, would you buy a Girl Scout cookie? They're older girls, so it's not, and they don't want to go around selling cookies. So we do a lot more what's called booth sales down at like the train station, and we sell a ton of cookies. So we bought a ton of cookies. This much went to sell, the individual sales, and we had this much, huge amount for booth sales, because that's where we sell most of our cookies. Guess what? All the booth sales were canceled. We have all these cookies, right? And I'm like, what the heck are we going to do with all these cookies? The money comes out of our troop account. It's drawn out. We need to get the money in. So when it goes out, we don't get like a little bouncing check going down the street. Anyway, so one of the mothers, I swear she and her daughter sold another 500 some cookies. One of the moms from Allie's troop, Allie doesn't really have a troop anymore, her past troop, she sold cookies. Some two families together contributed about $500 between the two of them. And even more, we got contributions. We took a load of cookies to the food pantry. There's going to be some happy families in Hoboken as they start to get Girl Scout cookies. So we also did donate some to the frontline workers. I knew that other Girl Scout troops were doing frontline worker drives, so that's why we did a little bit of that route, but we didn't do a lot of it. But I knew they were well taken care of. So that's why we went the food pantry route, to kind of spread the joy. So I think that's what I'm doing in terms of Girl Scouts.
Is there anything that you've learned during this personally that even surprised you about either how you're coping or how your life has changed in a good way or a bad way or whatever, but just something you didn't expect or see coming either in your own personal learning or some other facet?
Our family is always on the go. We do things every weekend. Oh my gosh, we do tons of fun stuff. That has all come to a screeching halt. And that's okay with me. I have read tons of books. You were on Facebook with me when I was looking for a crossword puzzle. A friend of mine gave me a 1,000-piece crossword puzzle that is driving me. The girls helped at first, drove them nuts. I sit down probably every day and work on it. I'm making some headway. I mean, we did go to the gardening store. We've like done some really nice work with a garden. I'm really not, when we're able to get out and about, we'll go back to being out and about. But I've just been surprised. I'm perfectly content here. We do walks and I do get out. It's not like I'm completely holed up in the house, but seems to be working. I'm okay.
That's great. Valerie, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed for this. I really, really appreciate it. I love all the different things that you shared. Everybody has a different perspective, and that's what's going to make this oral history so rich. And so I'm going to close out the recording aspect, but hold on for a second. I don't think it's going to leave us. I just hit that and hit the stop button, stop recording. Stop recording.